Hey there, everybody. Today is day 7 of the Advent streak. We are on Luke chapter 7. I encourage you to read that chapter and to continue reading through the Gospel of Luke as we continue through Advent, one chapter a day. Luke chapter 7 is, for me, one of my more favorite chapters of the Gospel of Luke. It's very simple. There are 3 miracle stories. And then in the middle of those 3 miracle stories is this extended discourse where Jesus responds to some questions about his identity, whether or not he's really God's chosen one. But these 3 stories really jump out to me. They're all stories where Jesus reaches out in compassion and mercy to broken people that he encounters. And there's nothing spectacular about the stories. It's just very simple. Jesus responding to people's need of mercy, to people's brokenness. And he just, without question, helps these people and restores some sense of goodness to their lives, some sense of hope. You've got the centurion, the Roman centurion, the first story where he sends people to Jesus to have Jesus come and heal his servant or his child. Some translations might say child. And this Roman centurion, it doesn't even think he's worthy for Jesus to come into his house. He just heal my servant, restore his health. There's a real need. And Jesus is amazed at this man's faith and heals his servant. And then right afterwards, Jesus is walking along, and there's a widow who's burying her son. And you can imagine the trauma and the sadness and the weeping and the mourning going on. And Jesus stops and restores her son and restores hope to this woman's life, brings life to her son, and he says to her in the middle of all, he says, "Don't cry. Don't weep." And then the end of Luke 7, Jesus is at a Pharisee's house for a dinner party, and the sinful woman comes in and cries over Jesus' feet, wipes his feet with her hair, and then pours ointment on his feet and kisses his feet. And the Pharisees are appalled at the scene because this woman who's doing this, who Jesus lets touch her, or lets her touch him, is this sinful woman that everybody knows who she is in the town. Yet Jesus welcomes her and lets her touch his feet, and he even praises her as an example and forgives her sins. All these stories are Jesus reaching out to broken humanity and giving them salvation, letting them know that God has not forgotten them. And in fact, in Jesus, God is coming right into their pain and giving hope, restoring peace. And it's not the spectacular stuff that we, in the first century at least, you would imagine that God on earth would be doing. God on earth should be overthrowing the bad guys, should be fixing the big problems in the world, but yet Jesus is spending his time with broken individuals, bringing them hope, letting them know the simple fact that God has not abandoned them, even though life has given them difficulty. And in the middle of that, John the Baptist sends people his way. It's an interesting comparison. The centurion sends people to Jesus for healing. John the Baptist sends people to Jesus to find out if he's really who he says he is. And Jesus' response is very interesting. He doesn't really respond. He responds more out of frustration, it seems. He says, this generation, they're like children who aren't satisfied with the things they're given. And they complain. And they're not happy with what they see. It doesn't fit what they expect. And he's saying that about himself. He says, I'm healing and restoring and bringing hope, and yet people are wondering if I'm really God on earth. And I think that stands for us today still too. What do we expect Jesus to do? All he does in this chapter is brings God's hope to the broken lives of people around him. That's all. And I think that's still what Jesus' mission is today. And sometimes we expect more. We want God to do bigger, better things. But what Jesus came to do was to bring hope to individual lives and to let them know that God is present. And yes, Jesus temporarily fixes the problems. He heals, he restores, he gives forgiveness. But the people that he healed will die. The people he restores will probably get ill one day again. The people he gives forgiveness to will mess up and sin again. But the message is still the same. Jesus did it once, he'll do it again. God has not abandoned you. That's the hope of Jesus' presence. That's the hope of salvation. That God will not abandon us. And there is a hope and a future for us. Jesus brings that. Our prayer today. God, who makes us glad with the yearly remembrance of the birth of Jesus Christ, grant to us that we would joyfully receive Jesus as our Redeemer, so that we might with sure confidence take hold of him when he comes again to live and reign with us in the new kingdom forever. Amen. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.